And by the way, I meant to ask with Kelcie, it's a part of a series. Do we know any idea how many books we're going to be looking at and when we might expect to see the second?
Yeah, I'm the second one is supposed to come out. They're supposed to come out one a year. So I'm hoping it will be March of 23. So far so good. I should knock on something. We'll see. But there's 3 books that they've picked up. I right now it's in my head it's 4 total books. It may be 3, it just depends. It's a pretty big arc to get from book 1 to the very end of the story in one book in the middle. So but I've written book 2, I'm editing it now. And there's most definitely at least going to be 3. And I'm hoping there'll probably be 4. Yeah.
If book 3 is just mega sized and
it might just be it might be Deathly Hollow size, which
then
is
we'll
fine.
know that's how they're working that.
There you go.
Does it when you're working on your sequel, now that you've done at least your preliminary world building, and you know the characters, is that any easier, or are there all new challenges, and if so, what?
Yeah, well, in book 2, unlike in book 1, we talk and we hear a lot about the lands of summer and the lands of winter, but in book 2 it was massive world building because we leave the school on a mission, and we see a lot of the lands of summer. We are going to go into the lands of winter. They go back into the human world a little bit. It was a lot of world building, which is hard because you built the whole school and then you think, oh, I'm done. But no, I did this to myself. It's a big other world, and it's all leading to something, and it's really important. So in book 2, where there's the Academy for the Unbreakable Arts on the lands of summer, we meet some new characters too who are from winter, who go to a rival school. So there's, the lands of summer gets into huge jeopardy, and our favorite Fiona has to go and save the day. But along the way, we literally introduce all of these characters from the other world. So we meet a lot of people. And when we start the story in book 2, we start it actually with some of you learn in the book that the clan that Kelcie come from, the Fomorian clan, there was a lot of backlash to an event that happens, which I don't want to talk too much about because I don't want too many spoilers. But the Fomorians have all been taken from their homes right about the time that Kelcie was abandoned, actually, in the human world, and moved into a place called Chalwell Woods, which is the most dangerous place in all of the lands of summer. But they've been moved there, call it like the Japanese internment camp here. I don't really want to connect it to the Holocaust, but it's a similar kind of thing where these people, they were being moved because they're paying the price for something somebody bad did in their clan. And Kelcie is a part of that clan as well. She finds out she is Fomorian, and so for her, she, a lot of book 2 becomes about figuring out who she is and how she's a part of that world, and going there at the beginning of it before she goes back to school. And so we get to see a lot of that. So there was a massive amount of world building and really important issues, I felt, to tackle in a fantasy world, so that it gives kids the ability to sort of read these things and think about the world around them a little bit, and these things that happen in our real world that are sort of very similar in that way, and about how she's going to go about helping the other her den mates who are in book 1, make real change for her own people. So this just becomes a bigger story.
It's tricky when it comes to the Holocaust. Obviously, the Holocaust is the Holocaust. You don't want to
Right.
be comparing things. Wearing a mask is not the Holocaust, or any of these other trite comparisons that come. But
No.
when you're writing a fantastic novel, and obviously, although we're talking about fantasy, we're talking about fun. We're also talking about humanity and trying to make sense of the
Yeah.
human condition. And so there is, I think, a question mark in most of our heads, whether it's the Holocaust, whether it's some other genocide,
Yeah.
or ethnic cleansing,
Yeah.
where you're going to see shades of real life events without reflecting those exactly, or without saying, "Hey, this is as serious as that." Obviously, it's not. But it
No.
makes sense that you would want to explore that you would want to, what's the word? I'm struggling to find to express that, to ask those questions of why. Why do these terrible things keep happening
Yeah.
amongst humanity, but through a fantasy lens where we don't have to look at anything directly specific, kind of indirectly looking at this terrible thing. Is that right?
Yeah, well, fantasy's always been a good place for that. I mean, Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 is about book burning. There it is. You know what I mean? It's the fantasy world of that. And so, for me in this particular, I come from a Jewish family. I would not compare what the Fomorians go through in this. It is much more like the Japanese internment camps that we had here in the US. But I feel like a lot of people are talking about the Holocaust right now. And I do think that it's a really important time to, to, to be open to having those conversations, because kids learn a lot through books and through things that they're watching in TV. And adults too, in terms of what they're, but with, in this particular situation, it's about compassion. It's about learning to have courage of conviction, which is what these kids have to have. And her whole Fiona being a part of it, especially when we discover who Niall is at the end of the book, which I'm not going to give away. There's a lot of reason why we can show kids making a real change, a real difference, and have them stand up for the bully who's doing wrong, and have them step in front of the person who's harassing someone in class, and be a part of of compassion, and building a world that doesn't see each other's flaws. I can't speak today, flaws all the time. We look at each other and we see flaws instead of just meeting the person and meeting the person. You instantly come at it with a first impression. And Kelcie does that in her own group of friends that she meets when she first gets there. I mean, other than Niall, initially, like she and Brona, wow, she sees Brona a particular way. And by the time you get to, and so do we, a very classic sort of know-it-all perfect girl. And by the time you get to the end of the story, it's her situation is very different. It's not what anybody thought it was. And same for Niall. Zephyr has the perfect family, not perfect. They weren't happy with him going to the academy. They want him to sleep in the barn, but he has a more supportive family. But it's interesting because the first time Kelcie meets Brona, she's perfect. Everything about her. She can fight perfectly, and she's a goddess's daughter, and everybody loves her and wants to be her friend, and she's real popular. And unlike a lot of stories out there right now, at least that I can think of, Kelcie's not popular and never has been. She comes at things from a little bit of she's got trust issues. She doesn't really want to expose too much about herself to anyone. But by the end of it, she becomes a little different person. And as we get into book 2, and she's got to meet more people, and it's for me a great way to talk to kids about the fact that they can change the world if they put their mind to it, if they have their courage of conviction, and they see the world make the world a better place. And, I mean, have hopeful messages, I guess is the way to say it, in a time when things are really hard right now. So